Here's my video on the reading of the week discussing his brain and her brain. So overall, obviously, it's pretty apparent that there are distinct differences between the male and female brain. They talk about how the females have a larger auditory cortex volume versus males and things of this nature, but the remaining mystery is how these different anatomical features, whether one part of the brain be larger than the other versus the male and female brain, how that really affects functioning between males and females, and if that does correlate to a different function or if it does not. Definitely think, obviously, if you have an anatomical difference, I believe it's going to reflect through a functional difference between us, and that's where I think this article is leading as well, and seems to indicate that, as with pretty much most of neuroscience, I would think at this point in time. So I especially liked how they were talking about the amygdala and the emotional responses, or how the amygdala controls the emotional responses, and how men tend to have larger volumes of the amygdala, or a larger amygdala than females, and how this could play a role in how men and women respond to emotions and emotional stress and things of that nature. I can see that, especially I think guys presented with emotional situations, stereotypically, not true for everyone, but guys tend to be a little bit colder, not as responsive, maybe take things a little bit less seriously, maybe don't get too emotionally wrapped up in things. Whether that's because we can control our emotions more, or if we have less emotions, I don't know. While stereotypically, females tend to, think of them as criers. They tend to cry more often. It's not necessarily always true, but tend to get more wrapped up in the emotional, tend to have more passionate emotional responses to stressful situations and things of that nature. However, they also made a note that I liked, how they showed that males were more likely to do better under stressful situations and do better learning under stressful situations. I see this all the time, especially in college. Even myself, as much as I try to plan ahead, sometimes most of the time I do my best learning, the 2 or 3 nights, the night before I'd take a test, because it's just, it's crunch time, it sticks in my head better. And even if I do try to take a test early, even if I do try to study really early for a test, oftentimes it just doesn't stick until, I get right up to it. However, a lot of females I know are extremely organized and extremely on top of their stuff and schedule ahead, and like to keep planners and like to study ahead, and they do really well and they learn better this way while keeping the stress levels low. But when it does come down to crunch time and they have to study last minute, they don't learn near as well. And I've seen that with friends, lower test scores, things of that nature. So I thought that was a good point they made there. So ultimately, there's a difference.